current show that I've put together is called Many Things. It's a colourful world. In the past I've used a few other titles that I think they're a bit humorous, like words that change the world and influence the weather. And in a way it's just to refer to flipping over of this to many things, and it's a colourful world. So it's all the same thing. And it's, while it's pointing to specific locations, atmospheres in the photographic works, and to maybe the atmosphere or somehow the environment that we are encountering now in the art world. My concerns are constantly with the art object becoming too static, too fixed. Very often I start to think that a lot of the artworks have that sort of prescribed feeling to it, or the entire interaction has to be on a certain level, a certain stuckness to it. How precise can I operate as an artist to bring some sort of action into a defined space, and then use that for doing, undoing, redoing. You question yourself as an artist. It's not just questioning what an institution does or an individual gallery does, and then revisit the entire scenario, because the works can be exhibited in hundreds of different ways. In a way, there's a stimulus that comes from that 60s art movement, minimalism. While things are reduced, certain materials as they use them and put them just simply into geometric patterns or very strict boxes, cubes, and so on. I think they still acknowledge quite a bit of the handmade aspect to it, or the fabrication through machines, but still the human was still present in it. I think I respond to this kind of thing because I use, for instance, beeswax, so therefore it's much more natural material that I use, but at the same time you still have to harvest beeswax from the bees, and then there's a huge production involved, which is then the extraction of it. Then you need heat, energy, machine, cooling down and extracting it until you get a block of beeswax, which I use in the fabrication. I think sometimes there was sort of a nice juxtaposition, or maybe a nice sliding onto each other, sort of like just bricks in a row, beeswax bricks that are then accumulated, presented in stacks or in formations. They're quite versatile. I don't stick only to this format. I keep changing constantly what I'm after with these kind of minimal, reductive elements. I think for many years I've been sort of, to a certain degree, less is more, but then maybe in this reduction the more one out. In a way, it's totally ironic to say that, but it is, the more you work with the same or with the less, the more less you have to use. All these things are sometimes wonderful to look at, but when we go a few times in there, where the Rubens hangs, where the Delacroix hangs, exactly that it's the same thing. You know, sometimes the reaction to the artwork is then so prescribed that there's no other reaction possible, there's no other reading possible. And the only psychological aspect of you as the viewer is that there's only this one thing. Referring to a silence in an artwork when everything else is screaming. That's what I respond to this. I think the dignity in this emptiness and this silence that comes from that space. You know, and I think that's sort of that level that I want to have most of the time in certain artworks, like the text piece, while you can read and you can get maybe emotional about words, but the referral to this is to as kind of a dignified silence that informs then why there's lines, there are colors, edges, and this small window that you have in front of you. That maybe is much more important how to refer to it in this form of silence rather than trying to push this into some form of stylistic approach. Reading in a way Beckett or modernist writers, they are always on about the end of what it is, so to speak, so on an end game to be experienced. And how do I work with this and this kind of existential part to that? What does that actually mean in terms of value of our existence? And producing artworks in this manner, where is the value in this? And this sort of kind of endism, so to speak, you know, but it's never there really, you know, and then you have to try to work out some form of communication and dialogue, how we use this space or this, I don't know, this sphere to actually culturally put still something into place that then reacts with our audience that may not be aware of what you're referring to in the first place anyway. And these very minute changes in when you read literature and so on, you know, particularly Beckett or Thomas Bernhard, these kind of writers, there's a certain form of irony and probably sort of a dark humor involved and most likely quite absurd. But then at the same time, that's life, you know, things take place, situations happen, they change, and other things will evolve from these things. Then there's artworks that I make, and then I'm thinking constantly in these frames, you know, how to do something. People respond in different ways to these kind of accumulated pieces. Many people respond really favorably to the beeswax and the text pieces that I do, and sort of almost sort of remnant pieces with wax shirts and wax sleeves and many of the wax objects that I just present. Then maybe this sort of more part of the everyday life, you know, that they react favorably to these items. They're not huge or demanding. Maybe have that sort of right size that they can comprehend without having to think or to judge too much. the newspaper action piece that was shot in 2003. Again, I thought I wanted to do an artwork that is totally pared down to a few elements. So it's like a wooden floor, white walls, and then you just do the action by having some pages glued together. Then wearing it and rolling around and unrolling myself in a newspaper until I come somewhere to a stop on the floor. Then crunch it up, so there's the action, and then leave the object, so therefore you have sort of like a crunched up ball of newspaper, and that's it. It's only a form. Then walk off stage, so to speak, as if it is the simplest and most precise action or theater just taking place. So bring all of these things together. It's a performance, it's stage, it's video, it's photography. All the forms come together. I just seem to then get dragged more into where to with this material then, and how far can I take it without making the bad artwork. So the reduction is always there. I'd rather work with very little, but then maybe accumulate. The process is really then repeating it, and the project and the strategy is the repetitiveness of the material, but without making it banal. So almost where do I extract the meaning now more and more and more. I think that's sort of the direction that I'm always taking everything to. And not fast either. Writing takes ages and sometimes not very good, but still there's more to be learned when things are bad, and then extract and cancel and delete. If you're seeing an object, you immediately engage with the materiality of the object. It doesn't matter if there's a painting, a photograph, and so on. But then to talk about, so to speak, the event of this, that this is not just simply an action, a thing that sort of happens, but it really is an event for myself, that this is there now, it is there, it is existential, it has an existence.